allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andrew Benson. Here. Ruth Groff. Bronwyn Losey. Here. Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. Okay. This brings us to item 4 in your packet, which is the public hearing, the charter cable franchise. Would someone like to make a motion to open this?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
A second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Munson?
That was Andra and Joe.
Joe first.
Right.
Oh, Joe was first.
Yeah.
Sorry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Have we received any correspondence on this at all? Anybody rating any comments of any kind?
I have not seen anything. I don't know if anybody else has.
CJ,
That I've seen. Nope, nothing I've received. Other than from members of the broadband committee, of course, which is included in your packet.
Anyone waiting in the room, CJ, for comments? Since the public hearing is open.
There are 3 people waiting for privilege of the floor. I'm not sure if they're associated with the public hearing. I don't believe so, but Deb may have more specific direction on that.
There for privilege.
Well, thank you, broadband committee members, liaisons who are here for working hard to move this forward. At least we have a public hearing. Anything else that we have no next month also, right? Okay.
On the same topic?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, 2 different.
CJ can explain
Yeah, why don't you do that?
better.
That'll
Use the
take a
space.
minute.
Yeah, right.
So CJ, we have basically 2 public hearings, like one today, and then we're having one next month scheduled, I believe, or we will schedule for this franchise agreement, correct?
That would be contingent on the discussion this evening, whether you believe that the agreement is acceptable and would like to move forward with setting a public hearing for the June 15th meeting. I believe the broadband committee will be reviewing the draft again on June 7th.
And my understanding is that this hearing speaks to past performance and the next hearing will speak to the renewal of the franchise agreement. So that's why there's 2 sort of, if people have specific complaints or problems, bring them here, and then we can move forward with what the new proposal is.
Okay.
So we've gotten a proposed franchise agreement back from Spectrum, or is this the proposed one that we looked at 2 weeks ago?
This is the most updated information I have. It's been circulated to you. We don't know if they will accept, but that's a part of the discussion tonight.
Well, it's now 6:35. I think we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Would someone like to move that?
Certainly.
So Joe has made the motion. Anyone like to second it?
I'll second.
And so Andra has seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Item 5 is resolutions.
There aren't any there.
Nope, thank you. I'm looking through my packet here, so what is this? We're trying to find the resolution.
Oh, there'll be some, but just not right there.
And you're aware of it this time, right? As opposed to here they come. Okay, good. So privilege of the floor. We have 3 people in the waiting room for this. I think we also perhaps have a gentleman here. So I guess CJ, you want to let them in one at a time and they have up to 3 minutes?
Yes. Sure thing. First is Roger Brandt, Rochester's Cornerstone Group. Hold just a moment.
Hello, Roger. There you go.
Good afternoon. Good evening. How is everyone tonight? Oops. There we go. Good evening. My name is, can I start right in? Great.
We can hear you, Roger. You're all good. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Roger Brandt. I'm the president of Rochester's Cornerstone Group. And I wanted to take a few minutes this evening and address the board regarding our response to the Lansing Town Land request for proposal regarding parcel J. As all of you remember, we were the developers of the Milton Meadows property, the 72-unit family facility, which was built a few years ago. Parcel J was one that we had our eye on because we wanted to, we feel that there's a need for senior housing. And that is what we would like to propose if we could come to terms on the arrangement for the land. So we have submitted to the town a request or an offer for parcel J, which is 14.4 acres. And we'd like to build a 70-unit senior mixed income housing single building property on parcel J. To get to parcel J, there'll be some road connections which will be done on the internal parcels, which would connect that parcel to the roadway system around it. The project itself would be a mixture of primarily 1-bedroom units, but there'll be some 2-bedroom apartments as well. And our hope and goal is to meet have a wide range of income bands for meeting the needs of many seniors in the community of different economic abilities. The property itself, we've built several buildings like this. It would contain a fitness center, community room with a kitchenette, laundry facilities, outdoor patio and community garden, and some recreational space. Parcel J does have some wetlands on it, and we did some testing a while back, and I know there's some rock, there is rock in the area. So we know that we will have to install a 5-acre leach field, and we are planning on making this an all-electric property similar to Milton due to the lack of gas. And the state is now promoting the idea and the concept of all-electric buildings. The building itself will be brick and masonry at the ground level and a combination of fiber cement, lap, and premium vinyl cedar shake siding to add different gestures and textures to the building. 10% of the building of the units will be fully adapted for accessible apartments for people with mobility impairments, and 4% will be actually 3 units will be for the hearing and visually impaired. The comprehensive plan of 2018 for the town is very clear that one of the goals is to provide additional housing options for seniors to remain residents of Lansing, and to include seniors who wish to remain in their homes, people requiring healthcare, custodial care, and supportive services, provide different types of housing services or housing communities. And that's what we are targeting in the town's comprehensive plan. So we'll be creating a lot of construction jobs and some, excuse me,
Okay,
the number of,
thank you.
Yeah, Mike, that was his now.
Oh, sorry. Do you have a few more?
Yeah.
that's right. The last couple of points is Milton Meadows was quickly stabilized. We had some challenges during COVID with people, say, not paying, and then some people that we were unable to evict, but things have calmed down there, and we're very pleased with the way that project has come along, serving the needs of a lot of people in the community. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, CJ, we have the second person for privilege of floor.
Yes, next up we have Diane Fine, I believe. Hold just a moment, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, CJ, we have the second person for privilege of floor.
She's gonna shut up.
Yes, next up we have Diane Fine, I believe.
Diane, can you hear us through Zoom?
Can you see me or hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you'll have to turn off your YouTube feed or else we get crazy
So
feedback.
I can, hold on a sec. I guess I have to turn off the YouTube. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Much better.
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks.
Terrific. My name is Diane Fine. I'm a Lansing resident and live down near Myers Park near the creek. As are many of you, I'm at Myers Park almost every day, and I'm grateful for all of your efforts to create such a lovely resource available for everyone. When I was recovering from major brain surgery and couldn't yet drive, I'd ask friends to drive me to the point so I could see the lake and sky. And sometimes I didn't even get out of the car. And I saw and continue to see many other people doing the same. Having that car parking access on the point was integral to my healing journey. And from what I witnessed, I believe it's a highly valued access for many folks and for many different reasons. And this is what I'm speaking about regarding the plan that I see to turn that into full beach. I started to dream and to move here, and now that dream is a reality, and I live right next to the park. And I really appreciate the kayak slips next to the beach. Launching from the beach is much easier for me than off of a floating dock on the edge of the creek. I also appreciate the parking next to the slips for when friends join me with their kayaks, the easy access to load and unload with lots of space to do so makes it logistically lovely. And the plan shows moving the kayak launch up the creek. And not only is a floating dock not ideal for many folks of differing abilities, if the kayak launch area only has a single driveway along the creek, as the plan seems to indicate, it would be very challenging when many people are loading and unloading all at once, which often happens. The current space and parking area is excellent as it is, in my opinion. And I heard the plan might include regular dredging of the creek. Although I do not know the environmental impact of doing so, and I'd be curious to see the data on that, I do know that personally, I like the idea of regular dredging. Many of my neighbors and I had terrible flooding in August and October from water underground getting pushed from the creek into our basements. And in February, we had an extremely close call when the ice got jammed up against the railroad trestle and almost caused overground flooding into our yards. I believe regular dredging would help keep our property safer. I hope research on that detail is indeed included in the final plan. And then finally, the car parking option close to the point is a key feature for those who do their wind sports on the point. Many friends use that parking lot for their wind sports, who say it's one of the best spots in the Northeast for windsurfing and kiting. And being able to park the car with a large grassy area to unload the gear right next to the lake makes it a gem of a spot in the entire region. If the parking closest to the point disappears, it should be nice for the next closest parking lot to remain, to maintain accessibility for many folks for many different uses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, CJ, we have a third person.
Yes, hold just a moment for Jeff Bishop.
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi.
I can. Can you hear me, Mr. Bishop?
Yes, I can. Hello, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jeff Bishop. I'm a resident of Dryden for the past 36 years, and I am a huge fan of Myers Park. I have had a season pass ever since they've been offered. I volunteer my time and expertise to help out whenever that's appropriate. I helped implement the weather station at the park that many people enjoy. And I primarily am there for water sports access. I am an avid kiteboarder and windsurfer. I am an adjunct faculty member at SUNY Cortland. I teach the windsurfing class and have for the last 4 years, which is hosted at Myers Park. I've had a camper on site all last summer as a seasonal camper, and plan to again this summer. And my daughter works for the Paddle and More operation at the park as the Wind and Waves Adventure Camp Director. I've read through the proposed Myers Park plan, for the 5-year plan, and am compelled to speak to you to provide some additional feedback from a different perspective. Diane very eloquently pointed out, I'm a friend of hers, one of the kiteboarder friends that she talked about, and motor vehicle access to the lakefront is an absolute treasure to me and to my wind sports enthusiast friends. It's unique in the Northeast to be able to access the lake and be right next to the water and be able to be in your vehicle and have all of your gear and whatnot. And when I'm at the park, I see folks enjoying the views and watching what's happening just from their car. They just come and sit at lunchtime, at sunset, during storms, all in the middle of the night when the moon's out, at all times. And it's really a different perspective than motorboat access, where we have the marina right next to the in the park next to the lawn, and motorboats get a huge priority in terms of real estate and access to the water. And we would like to see an opportunity to talk about how we could keep that vehicular access and parking access at the point in the future. And it impacts kiteboarding, windsurfing, stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing, small sailboats, everything you can think of that goes on the water or in the water that doesn't involve a motor. And those are the folks that are leveraging and taking advantage of this phenomenal resource. And it's about location. There's Stewart Park is also close to the lake, but it's not the same thing as Myers, because you're not right next to the water, and you're
the wind options are very limited at Stewart Park, as the trees are in the way and there's all kinds of challenges down there with weeds and stuff. The other point about the bathrooms, we're very concerned about moving the bathrooms further away from the water. We have lots of swimmers and people that are enjoying the lake, and having the bathrooms further away is not a good idea, in my opinion. We'd like to see, at a minimum, some options for porta potties or something for people to be able to use a bathroom that's not the lake, ideally. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and look forward to more opportunities to discuss how we can meet the needs of people that have concerns about vehicle access and those with wind enthusiast desires. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bishop. Much appreciated. Anyone else, CJ, that's in the waiting room for the floor?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, I think we have one gentleman here. Charlotte, do you want to come up and have 3 minutes? Up to 3 minutes. You don't have to. I think you signed in. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lee Shirtliff. Just recently.
You gotta speak into the mic so everybody at home can hear it.
Okay, can you hear that? I'm Lee Shirtliff. I'm with the Tompkins County Legislature, and I want to stop in and just formally introduce myself to all of you. I assumed the position a few months ago, and it's the District 9 legislator seat, which includes part of the town of Lansing, as well as part of the town of Dryden and all of the town of Groton. And I speak from time to time with Supervisor Levine, and I just wanted to stop by, say hello, and have you put a face to the name, and let you know that if there's any concerns or anything I can do to facilitate the town of Lansing, I consider myself one of your representatives, and I'm glad to do so. I'm a lifelong resident of Groton. I retired a couple of years ago as Director of Emergency Response for the county, and have taken over the operation of our family funeral business since then, which are in Groton and Genoa. So I'm driving through as part of the district on a daily basis, and I spend a lot of time here. And again, if there's anything I can do to facilitate the county, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I, of course, with Deborah Dawson and Mike Sigler, very frequently. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. I'd like to stop periodically attending as many town board meetings as I can in all 3 towns.
Is it appropriate for you to leave a contact number or something in case we want to reach you? Or I'm sure we can look it up on the website if we have to want to reach you.
I'm sure. I think Debbie knows that.
Thank you.
I will.
Thanks. Okay. There's no one else for food to the floor. Now we have the optional board member responses, maximum 2 minutes. If a board member or members wish to choose to respond.
I would just like to ask if either CJ or Pat could describe what the process of design for Myers Park is going to be, so that members who've spoken out on it will know where they can give further input on that design process.
Maybe that should be something farther down a discussion, Joe, because this is just your response. This is not a debate or discussion back and forth informational session. This is just a courtesy for any board members to respond for up to 2 minutes, and only they respond. So, any other comments?
I would just like to thank everybody who came to Privilege of the Floor. I found all of the comments really interesting and gave me insight to things that I didn't have before. So that's kind of ideal for the use of the time. And I wanted to thank the folks who came to speak.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say that. It's very good when the community, people in the community take the time to speak to us, either by Zoom or in person, because then we understand better that we really do represent all different kinds of people. So that was very, very good.
I would just add that I encourage people to come to the board entirely, rather than have side conversations. If they have concern, I wish they would address the board more, like these ladies and gentlemen did, to do this here. So all the board can hear it at the same time. That's the only comments I have. I encourage people to reach out to the board and either through Zoom or in person, use their privilege for up to 3 minutes to share their concerns. Having said that, let us move on then. So we're now into the department reports. Number 7 in your packet. We have the Lansing Library.
I don't know.
talking to Mike from the off. So,
Okay, all right.
good now.
After that, we have the Lansing Youth Services Board.
For that one, I'd like people to make sure they read number 10, Lansing Services. Since they're in the process of getting people to take a survey. That's the part. The contact that Megan put on there is for adults. We want survey, we had teens doing the surveys, but we also would like adults. So if you can, it would be very good. Everybody on the board could take that survey.
So this survey is for the assessment of needs of youth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. People say,
And is it for anybody in the community?
yes, absolutely anybody.
I know we're working on a new website, so we're not really updating our current one. Is there a way to get this out to people who are interested?
We can put it out through our Facebook page,
Okay,
and I
great.
mean, we're that close to being
Taste
ready.
it. Right,
Yes.
right.
We're-
I can't wait to see that.
We're nearing the finish line.
All right, so yeah, just whatever we can do to kind of.
Yeah, I
push
can
that out
actually-
to people.
Do you know if they send it out through school?
Oh, good idea.
I can
I don't know.
I can send it out through their listserv.
Okay.
Anything else on that? How did the separate fundraiser go?
Excellent. Better than I imagined, because it was a drive-through.
It's always.
Yeah.
Exceed your expectations.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to, let's see, nothing, Mike still hasn't submitted anything yet, so Park and Rec report, Pat Terrell. You want to add anything that's here?
Um,
That's not here in the packet?
I don't think I do, because I think we'll have a lot to discuss later. So I'll just keep it rolling unless anyone has questions.
Anybody have questions? About anything to do with the Park and Rec?
I think we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's-
just want to make sure,
Yeah.
an opportunity to ask questions.
Well, if Pat wants to take this opportunity to talk about how Myers Park's design would happen, I think.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, certainly. I spoke to both of those people that addressed the board. Had good conversation with both of them. And obviously, this is probably going to be a working document going forward. And things, obviously are going to change during construction and design and all that. All that's all up in the air. So I think people think this is set in stone and it's really not. So but I'm glad people are bringing those comments to me, because that was a concern, the kite borders and those, to get access to the water. So I think we have found a way to do that for those people, maybe not on the side that it currently is, but on the southern side. So obviously it's going to continue to be a work in progress for the next several years, even 10 to 20. I mean, so certainly like to have comments like that, so we know we can address things as we go.
So it would be safe to say that this is conceptual.
It is a conceptual plan, yes.
So as this thing evolved from, let's see, let's go back to memory lane. Maybe this is months and maybe Lee remembers this when it was owned by what, the American Salt Company.
I'm not that old, sorry.
No, I'll be dating myself. Evidently, it was a swamp. And it was one of the Sharpsteins, who was the highway superintendent at the time, whose mission was to fill in the swamp that was given to the town. Kind of like there's other things that might be given to the town, right? And Charlie Howell, John Howell's father at the time, he was supervisor, and they worked along with a few other the volunteers, and they built it up. And it is now still below the floodplain, but they built it up, so it's better. And when we did the playground, we did down and find things like tables and things like that. We didn't find any bones, thank goodness, but we found other stuff. And when they built the log cabin, when Lansing Community Council and everybody in the town funded that, not taxpayers' money, when they put about the floodplain, when they first built it, looked like it was on a pedestal. It was so high. And then we had the pavilions from the lines, and then we had the second playground built, right? And then we had the gazebo built, and then we had, what am I getting at? This thing is evolving, right? So what another generation comes in with their concerns, they also put their stamp on it and it evolves. Let's face it, windsurfing wasn't there 20 years ago, right? So now it's a concern. And it's also a wonderful way to do things. So this is, as we have the conceptual plan, we also have ways to plant the seeds to evolve into where it's going to go. And the bathrooms, how much duct tape and chewing gum can you put on those pipes? You know, I mean, most people aren't privy. Where are they now? They're back down trying to fix the second one. They're trying to pump out the bathroom because it's not very safe to go in there now, or whatever. These are things you deal with every day.
I'll add one thing to that.
Go ahead. And as much as you.
No, you.
It's important that people realize that this is evolving, and it is the love and energy people put into this is why this is such a great place.
No, I'm glad you all said to reach out to the board, but certainly I'm available, phone, email. My cell phone is on my email. You know, all of my contact information is there. Feel free to reach out to me and ask me questions, because I have no problem having good conversations with people at all.
No, definitely, I hear you're receptive to changing this to the way the community wants to hear it. I just want to, I know it's really hard to get community engagement when the design process starts. And so I'd like to, give people to understand right now that there is going to be some kind of community input session. And we want you there too, because we want to hear all the perspectives during that design process. And I don't think we can repeat it enough that there's going to be a design process, there's going to be community input, and we really want the community to come and talk to us about how they use the park.
Well, not even design. I mean, during construction, things may change too. I mean, I'm always open to anyone's comments.
As the one GM told me one time, you want everything to go the way that stay in your trailer and don't leave the office. Once you step out, things go sideways. What do you mean we can't get the pipe? What do you mean they put in the wrong condenser? What do you mean, right? What do you mean, right? Here we go. So anybody who's been building those things understands that it is, how they say, STC, subject to change, right?
Iterative.
Especially now when you order that part and discover it's no longer available.
Yeah, or it's available 12 weeks from now, maybe.
Maybe 3 times the cost.
Yeah.
So like I said, we have conversations quite frequently, almost daily, and it's like, where are you now, right? Okay, or whatever. So this is important, I think, for people to have input. It's also important. It's almost like these public hearings are where you really kick off the public discussion, not so much with the hearing part, but with the input. The final, I mean, you have the survey, you sent it out, and I'm not throwing stones at people who did this, but this seems a pattern of this where we are in our society. Oh, did you hear about what? And here we are, right?
It's always last minute.
We all have busy lives, I understand that, but people, to quote Ted Lux, you gotta stay informed, and we're trying to get as many ways we can to get the information out there. So hopefully more people will also try to find the information as we move forward in the process, right? Okay. Moving on, speaking of something changed, Mike Mosley. So by the grace of God, when that ice dam broke and ripped out
Benches and trees.
trees.
We lost real estate, yeah.
And real estate, oh my, here we are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, this literally ripped it out. And
Yes.
here we are scrambling now. And to get back to Ms. Fine's concerns, we try to do this every other year with the dredging, about 20-some thousand to do it. Because the rental, correct me if I'm wrong, might be, but to rent the equipment and you get the permit and everything has to be in place. And if you get a premature thaw, or you get a rain, it raises the level, and you want to get the level as low as possible, you can dredge as much as possible. And you've ever seen this happen, there is a mountain of dirt that it produces. The sad reality, though, is that you can only go to the edge of the lake where the wall is, and the first heavy rain comes and it slams into that, fills it back in. Not throwing stones at the Army Corps of Engineers, but it'd be nice if they would allow us to go a little farther out and dig out the mouth so we can go down and do that. These are the other facts we hear about, and we may have to go from once every 2 years, once every year, which is another $25,000 to $30,000. So how was your day?
Busy. One thing I'd add to that is, obviously the brick gravel there's a cost to us removing it, but we've been using it. So if we use brick gravel in the size of the cobble, we're not using bankrupt. So that's huge for us. I was just down with Pat today, down to Myers, sizing up where we need to add in some rock on the shoreline there, protected of the creek. That will be coming along within probably a couple of weeks, hopefully. We're moving tomorrow to start the Salmon Creek project. Joe, you'll see us down there, I'm sure. Where we had worked before along the guardrail section, near the 300 block of Salmon Creek Road. So onto my report, obviously, we did the annual brush pickup for the village and the town. Shout out to Tompkins County Highway Department, Jeff Smith and Nick Ensign. We had both of our grade L's break down, our new one and our old one. We had both of our loaders break down in the process, which cost us at least 2 extra days in the entire process. Tompkins County Highway Department was kind enough to allow us to use one of their grade L's for 2 days until ours could be serviced and brought back into service. Excuse me. Let's see, for road maintenance, obviously, we work with Tompkins County Soil and Water, Angels, a rock star. We wouldn't do half the projects without her. CJ can attest to that. Hydro seeding, Joe, you probably saw that. We might revisit that because of the heat. It definitely affected some areas where we were around town. We'll work with them to reapply if needed. And then our annual maintenance of replacing culvert pipes and maintaining our ditches, and prepping for stone level. That's where we're at now. That's it.
I think it's great that you had such a great working relationship and have been using this concept of shared services for many years with the county, also with other municipalities. So thank you for that. Thank you for building those relationships. I've had an opportunity to speak to Jeff Smith once or twice, and I have to be careful because there's also Jeff Smith from Municipal Solutions I talked to a lot. So I'm sure I got the right Jeff Smith and not talk about county goal. But I did say one thing, and then briefly I'll pass on to the board members when I ask questions, is that it's like Ridge Road is being now Sucrose paving. I know it's a state road, but this is FYI, they're going to the town line, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
From north to south, so from Butte County back to the bridge, and then they'll start at Portland Point Road and then work to the bridge deck and then back.
And
That's
hopefully the bridge will be done this year.
fingers crossed. Yes.
I for July also. I asked them 2022. And they said, so anyways, and once again, STC, right? Something changed. So anyways, anything you want to, any of the other board members want to?
Yeah, I would like you to explain what's gonna happen at Salmon Creek, because I know a lot of people on there have been asking questions about it.
Just in that section there, the 300 block.
Yeah,
Well, due to the massive flooding that we had, obviously, would be October and then again in February. It shifted some of the rock, and as you can see coming from the Benson's pasture west and the hook comes straight at the road, the rock has moved and shifted. So we need to implement a new plan of coming up 3 foot with the rock, and then on a 1 to 1.25 slope coming down, engineered, of course, to protect the road. That's our main goal. this is, this is hopefully a short-term fix. We're working with CJ and Angel with trying to get a grant with BNL and FEMA to actually do more work. But right now, we can't wait. This needs to happen. And obviously, I want to resurface the road after we talk. That's
Excellent, thank you, right. What you want to do is something similar to what you did to Salmon Creek, up to what, 2 miles up the road?
by the letters north of
Yeah.
Lockerbie.
Yeah.
That's correct. Put the real estate back,
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that will take out the road if we're not careful.
100%.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the highway superintendent? Okay. Moving on to, looks like the planning report, CJ. Always nice to see you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. If there are, first, I just want to ask, are there any specific questions on the report itself that I could answer? Because I have a couple updates.
Do you ever get time for yourself?
Yeah. In fact, I have a little bit of an update regarding Mikey just mentioned the Salmon Creek project. The good news there, and I don't know if I even got to share this with him yet, but remember when we applied for the water quality improvement project money last year but didn't win it? That was a 75-25 match, which means the town was going to have to come up with some cash, pay for equipment rentals. It wasn't as good a program. We were encouraged by county planning to apply through hazard mitigation funding at this round, and the match is 90-10. And my understanding is that there's really good chance that the town will obtain that funding. We're actually going through a pre-application project with the lovely named DISHES, the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. And so that's a project that Mikey was just talking about. So really, we'll just have the labor as match, which is really marvelous. All the costs would be paid. So fingers crossed, and thanks for your support on that resolution this evening that's in front of you for your consideration. I have a couple updates from the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, for which I attended as an alternate to Ruth. One of them is, and I think this is just super marvelous news, is the Safe Streets for All SS4A grant is going to be out, and we're looking at $1 billion in spending, federal spending over the next 4 to 5 years. And they want everyone to start with plans for complete streets implementation through comprehensive safety action plans. We've been talking at ITCTC about how we could do this regionally, working together cooperatively. As some of you know, there's really significant interest in bringing complete streets to many notable thoroughfares and intersections, corridors, if you will, in the town of Lansing. And I know that this is the case in other municipalities too. So us directors of planning are thinking of banding together and trying to do something cooperative together. So I'll keep you posted on that. And we're also looking to engage with LCSD to possibly implement some safe streets to schools as well as part of that. The other thing I'd like to note is that there is a new free ride program coming for TCAT that will be free for all youth starting on May 29th. They want to urge youth to take the bus, especially to the parks. Very exciting. And also everyone's favorite Salmon Creek Bridge. The concrete deck pours are proceeding, and at this point it's not contingent on the weather, but rather on concrete itself. The contractors are having trouble procuring concrete, and so that is the holdup, if any, but my understanding is that it's underway according to DOT. And last but not least, Mikey was mentioning some of the work he's been doing, drumming up interest in possibly shared services. And I wanted to let him know the new consolidated funding application resources are out. And they now are willing to pay up to $500,000 for a vacuum truck. So it was really good. We didn't win again last year. We'll get a higher percent of the match yet again.
Genius.
Not by design, not by design. But in any event, Mikey's been going around and working with other municipalities to see what interest there could be in this shared, really significant piece of equipment. And so he's really setting me up to make good progress on those grants. And I'm assuming we'll be moving forward with that again, and that the Capital Improvement Committee would recommend that we go and submit that grant application again. Most of it's already done, which is great. So that's really the highlights for me. I just did want to mention that if any of you got a chance to look at the request for proposal for Myers Park Architectural and Engineering Services, pages 6 through 9 actually lay out the scope of work. And it does include the validation of that concept plan relative to the capital costs, and also schematic design. It includes open house. And just to step through really quickly, major construction projects follow a concept plan stage, then schematic design, which then tests that concept. You then go on to design development, construction documents, permitting, public bidding, and then the construction and administration process. So to those who were wishing for this to be done this summer, sadly, that's not quite the timeline we're looking at, but we are very thorough in the scope of work. And my understanding is there was a number of firms who did come and visit Myers Park for the informal walkthrough that Pat graciously hosted there at Myers recently. So that's the highlights.
Any questions, comments for our head of the planning department? I don't know what title I should call you. Because, and not to minimize your importance, because you're very important. I don't want to say chief planner, head planner, because we got the other ace in the room next to you, John. So you're both fantastic. So I'll just say head of the planning department. How's that? Director? So I should probably Madam Director. All right. Any questions or comments for CJ? Once again, down memory lane. Once again, conceptual. Once again, new playground putting in. Old playgrounds supposed to be taken out. And that was changed at the last minute. Pat was involved with that. And we won't go into the process, but the highway guys came down, dismantled the old playground, with the little swings and the little things there, and kept it. That was another one of those conceptual plans that was subject to change, and they did that. The other thing I would simply say, and this goes to all the different board members who are liaisons to their respectful committees, I urge you respectfully to make sure that the committees that you're on, the advisory boards, stay within their own lanes as far as what their charges are, and not, especially now, not put more duties on our planning department. Because right now there is so much money out there that we're going after. It would be a shame if any of this got lost because somebody went off sideways on us on a concern that really doesn't concern us at this time. So I would urge all of you to tell them that committees need to stay, advisory boards need to stay within their own, what they're charged with. And that's only, and not come to these special concerns that draws our resources away from the planning department, because I personally feel this is a one in a lifetime opportunity with a pots of money that are out there. It'd be tragic for all our taxpayers to suffer because a few of them could not stay within the bounds that the town board gave them authority to work with. I'll just leave that at that.
I have one quick question then.
Yes.
The seeker we have for the Salmon Creek project, I can't read on page 2 of it. On the top, I can't tell what boxes are checked because there's the page thing that goes over it, so I can't actually read what boxes are checked on the top on item number 5.
Which page are you on? There's a bit.
36 on the agenda. In the packet, if you go down to the bottom.
Oh, right.
Page 36.
Page 36.
Yep.
Okay.
Item number 5. There's 3 boxes.
What are they for?
And I don't know what's being checked because there's a section 8 item E box over.
And you bring this now because you got CJ here. to
Yeah,
report.
yeah.
That's the reason why, or just had a moment for him to share with me, because we're afraid to forget it.
No, but
Okay.
it's part of the consent agenda, and so I figured I'd catch it now. Because I want to know what the boxes are checked. but I can't.
That's a good catch. Thank you, Jeff. Is the proposed action, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is no check mark. It is just yes or no.
Well,
There's three
box.
different, is it not applicable?
I don't know.
CJ? Help.
I'm just, I'm looking for the page that you're talking about. There's some,
Page 36.
there's two separate seeker environmental assessment forms in this packet. So just trying to, the EAF mapper summary.
This is part one.
CJ, in the private
Got it.
packet on page 36 is what.
Yep, hold on just a moment. So that's page, that would be page 3 of 3, right, in the short form for the Salmon Creek project?
No, it's 2 or 3. Item 5.
Yep, got it. It's right at the top. So that would be NA is the column all the way to the right. Yeah, it's it's not an action that would be subject to zoning, and it wouldn't be.
So it's
I
no,
don't think-
yes. It's no, and the second one is yes, and the third one is NA.
You got it. Yep, for that question. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other corrections we need to ask our director of planning?
Not on that one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, engineers report is not there. Let's move on then.
Ed,
Yes,
I forgot that.
no, go ahead. Since we're,
I had spoke to you about this and should bring it up real quick. So with our CHIPS money, our extreme winter recovery and our Paving New York, just recently, New York State has offered paving our potholes. So Lansing is due to receive $45,682.84. Okay, so my discussion with Ed is, as normal, will you front the money and will be reimbursed if we spend it? We just received the information from that May 12th.
So do you want to poll the board and find out if we're going to front money to get paid back so we get road work done?
Yes.
That's an easy one.
that's one opinion. So we still need a few more here,
Right.
but this is something now that my apologies, this is one that this come out left field.
I'm sorry,
Um,
but this can.
Nice.
It's not a vote, I just want to make sure everybody's on board.
Yeah, I should make.
when does the process need to start?
This can wait till next month.
Go now.
Okay, but you want to, so we now at least can have a formal resolution, so Mrs. Munson Blair, you don't like.
Yeah, and I need to add more to that too,
All right.
so.
But it's good to at least give an FYI. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Now, clerk report.
Now you gotta do your
That's,
report.
oh,
I'll be very
I'm glad we just took that out of the room. It's a little hot in here. Woo, somebody open the window.
Very brief. Everything's written here, highlight Rabies Clinic, anybody who needs to get their dogs, cats, update on the rabies, the information's right here, June 9th in the Enfield Highway Garage. And you pre-register, everything's right here for them. I believe it's also on our website. I would like to highlight that Jesse and I both attended the New York State Town Clerks Association Conference. It was a big year for their 40th anniversary. It was in Albany. We did a couple special things this year. We did a Build-A-Bear where we donated 100 bears to hospitals for children. And many of us donated items of personal care, houseware, ambulatory toys, et cetera, that went to the Veterans Miracle Center in Syracuse, where veterans can go there, I understand, once a month and get whatever they need to get to help them through that month. Huge thanks to Ashley for taking care of the office while we were gone. Huge congratulations to Bambi Avery, the Dryden Town Clerk, who is now the president of the New York State Town Clerks Association. She's an exceptional clerk, and I would like to say there are 932 New York State Town Clerks, so this is quite an honor, and she's in Tompkins County, so I think that's really worth mentioning. And the rest is just little tidbits, so.
Okay. Do you have any comments or questions for our exceptional town clerk? I would say that's Ashley. Didn't misspeak.
Yeah, she's good.
And that basically is a testament to you and to Jesse for the excellent training she got. So well done, all around.
Thank you.
Having said that, now I'm going to lean on you a little bit for your guidance because we're in the consent agenda.
Okay.
So you've got the help, okay?
All right. So I don't have the agenda right in front of me, guys. There's A through G in the consent agenda. I do usually have, town board read the titles of them, then we'll do a motion and a vote on them.
So I'm going to read them first and then do the motion or do the motion?
Right, you usually just have somebody read the titles, basically. And
And then we do the motion.
Yes.
Okay. So, Robin, do you want to do A and B, please?
Sure. Consent agenda A, motion authorizing stormwater operating management and reporting agreement for Lansing 34B DNYP LLC Dollar General Ridge Road. B, motion directing $200,000 ARPA funds to the highway department.
Rhonda, would you please do C and D?
The resolution scheduling public hearing of proposed local law, video conferencing authorization and policy. And should I say 6:31 p.m.?
Yep.
Okay. I guess that's cover the time of meeting begins. The resolution authorizing town supervisor to execute open space index and conservation plan agreement with Bergman Associates.
Okay, Joe, will you do E, F, and G?
Resolution making secret declaration of lead agency and authorizing sub-application to New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for Salmon Creek Stream Bank Stabilization Project. Resolution approving hiring of the seasonal Lansing Highway Department employee for 2022. And G, resolution approving audit and budget modification. And I'll move the consent agenda.
Okay,
Second that.
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Bronwyn Lucy,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
yes. Excellent. Item 9 in your packet, motions and resolutions, resolution making secret negative declaration of environmental significance and adopting the town of Lansing Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan. Andrew moves it. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now it's a further discussion.
Sure, I'd like to ask a question about the seeker form on this one as well.
Sure.
Part B, government approvals funding of sponsorship,
Which page, please?
page 77.
Thank you. Okay.
We did not check state agency. Yet this is talking about the Salt Point area as well. And is that DC land is going to require state approval for anything that happens on it? So maybe that should be checked off as yes.
I would say yes, but I defer to CJ on that one.
Which question is it again?
This is
B?
G.
Yes.
Yeah, B.
Question B.
Question B, subthing G. I would say
Yes,
that-
yeah, so this is only relative to the government approvals about this plan itself, not about any subsequent actions. So the state isn't required to weigh in on the master plan itself, but they certainly would be involved in any kind of and I believe the unit management plan at some point is up for review in the next couple of years. Pat could probably speak to that better, but yeah.
Okay, that was my question on that one. And then on our resolution on this, which I'm trying to find in the packet, I'm sorry. I tried pushing the little letters on my paper packet, and it doesn't turn me to the page.
72, I think.
Yeah.
It's at the beginning of it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It starts on page
Right.
70.
70, yeah. 70 to 73, it's a good long one.
I would just like to add a phrase into one of these resolves that says there'll be public participation in the design elements of these, of implementing this. And I talked to Pat and CJ, and I think they're both fine with that.
Well, how about we get their input on it, since we didn't have those discussions. So,
I'm okay with it.
CJ?
Yeah, I was thinking that perhaps I heard public input pretty broadly. Would it be appropriate to consider a public engagement plan along with the schematic design of any park? That way the town's Parks and Recreation Supervisor, presumably Pat, of course, would determine that level of engagement, because, in public engagement runs from everything from informed to completely empowered to make a decision. So I would really defer to that, to Pat on that. For each specific park, obviously, some parks would require greater public engagement. And then the ability for him to just approve that public engagement plan and revise it as needed, either to, generally speaking, to add engagement or language that he might like to see. If you're comfortable with that, I can send that language.
That would be great. I think that's really
Okay.
important between the various parts.
That's fine.
Okay, and that would be part 5.
Since we have Guy here, I'm trying to figure out where I am. Is there anything you want to add to this guy?
He's lost in the lots.
He
Oh,
added.
Okay,
No, he's there.
No, I'm hiding. I'm hiding. I had to climb down to get here. A good trivia question, if anyone recognizes what that is behind me, but we'll not cover that. No, I think this is as defined in its preamble and as explained earlier, it's a conceptual plan. Any kind of master plan as it goes through conceptual to implementation is going to, as a matter of fact, including under town law, require public input. If the town wants to specify what the public participation plan is at this stage or at a later stage when, let's say, a project is selected to move forward, it can do either. And I think it's fine to do both.
Okay, well, as we all know, things are subject to change. They're also subject to delay. They're also subject to whatever. As we see with the bridge, my concern is that it's good to have public input. We've had examples of how that has changed. We also, as this project starts, we need to have some sort of authority to say, we need to make a decision and make it move forward. And I think that's where Pat comes in with his input, is to, I'll say, you have the engagement, but at some point you have to move forward.
Right.
Like we're trying to do now.
Yeah, I added some language, number 5, I believe. Joe may have requested that.
Well, I'd like to know what you're talking about,
Yeah,
where number 5
We need to
is.
specifically know where.
Page 72, whereas it's second from the bottom, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there'd be a 5. 71. Here.
oh, page 71.
I'm on page 72.
71,
71.
So it says, whereas among the projects,
Yeah,
okay. It's a really long paragraph.
it's a big paragraph there.
well, let's go slow here because Mrs. Munson is editing as we go.
Yes, I'm just trying to get everybody
Wait a
in.
minute, that's page 70.
71. The large paragraph.
This one, okay, right here.
Yes.
And since we can't see it, could one of you read it?
Yes, so number 5 will say that there will be public engagement plan prepared prior to schematic design of any town park. The town parks and recreation supervisor will determine the appropriate level of engagement and approve and revise the plan as needed.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second,
Mhm.
which means now do we have to go back and, or do we have to say with said adjustments?
Well, I guess you should say that the people that made the motion in second, are you okay with the changes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
We're set.
No,
I'm
it's
you set.
Right.
Okay, so you're all set with the, okay, so any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Brian Lucy,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, the next resolution, approving grant of water line and fur box easement to Morabito for water line connection. If someone would like to move that. I will move it. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion?
yeah, I got a quick question for Guy. I read over the stuff you said, and basically what it said is an easement disappears if two things take place. One, it stops being used, and the other, the holder of the easement takes a positive step towards towards dissolving it. I forget the exact language in the stuff you said. What kind of positive step would that be in this case?
Well,
Can you give me
the-
a couple of examples?
you're in an area of law that they literally write entire books about. So the advice that I provided was accurate but general. The treatises that I provided are accurate but general. As one of them pointed out, the facts are determined at the time of the alleged act of abandonment or fact of abandonment, and they can be extremely varied, i.e., sometimes including that language creates and self-proves the law of unintended consequences, because then you've given someone standing to say, oh, I didn't intend that, I didn't plan that, that's not what happened. But to your question, the act can be an overt act, or it can be an implied act, or it can be complete passivity. So as I also included some information regarding not general easements, but specific easements, which is what this is. And that is when the purpose for a limited easement ceases to exist, then so too does the easement. So that sort of informs what my question was, and how many variations are the theme when you start talking about easements that are there to support buildings. Because when you deliver utilities to a building, which is generally presumed to have some sort of perpetual existence because they can be rebuilt, repaired, upkept, the easements have to generally be appurtenant, and the two main elements among a battery of them in what are easements appurtenant as opposed to easements in gross. And there's about 900 different types of easements, so I won't get too deep into it. Is that it run forever with the land. Now, they don't in fact run forever with the land. If you've ever looked at an abstract along any road that's been around more than 100 years, your property has 6 or 7 different NYSEG easements running lines to places that no longer exist. It doesn't mean that NYSEG can start running a line to a place that no longer exists. So likewise, if this easement ceased to be used for the purposes of delivery of water or for the purposes of supporting that building, it would very likely, unless there was a plan to put in a replacement building, also thus be extinguished. The important distinction here is not that it's a general easement appurtenant, but it's a specific easement appurtenant. So the overt act would be closing and not reopening for a requisite period of time. I don't know what that would be. A judge might ultimately decide, but generally speaking, a year is sufficient. gaining access for the needed water at a different location, which is really ties more into the right of way aspect of this particular easement as opposed to the easement aspect of this particular easement. But if it became unnecessary and purely redundant, it could be abandoned. Normally easements like this, especially if there were some kind of reconstruction or redesign, would either be expressly used to support whatever went in there next, or would be expressly abandoned by a written instrument, is usually how the title is cleaned up for the next buyer. But again, if you try to recite circumstances that can vary on magnitudes that are not foreseeable, then sometimes you lock yourself into the wrong lane. And the general common law is pretty reliable when it comes to the extinguishment of specific easements. If they're not used and there is some overt or indirect act that signifies abandonment, then that's sufficient. To put it in terms that might be more directly understandable, when does a tenant surrender their lease? Is it when they move out? Is it when you think they've moved out? Is it when they move out their furniture? What if they plan to come back and spend one more night? How do you know? Well, the common law has a doctrine for that as well. It's called the doctrine of ceasing. And I won't go into the ancient history of handing over a branch to the new owner of the land in the town square to document that the branch came from the land and it signifies the transfer of the land. I won't go through all of it. But for example, a tenant turning over the keys is usually proof that they've surrendered the tenancy. They can dispute it, but 9 times out of 10, a judge who knows real property law is going to say that's an act of cease and you surrendered. With a notice to quit, you moving out and turning over the keys, that's enough. You can't move back in and now get free rent under the COVID rules. You've already surrendered the tenancy. And believe it or not, that has come up a lot in the past year and a half, as you could guess, given my reference. So the common law really helps provide you with a number of alternatives here. But the general rule is that when you're dealing with necessaries, easements, access, that they recite that they run with the land forever. And that's what this easement does. It delivers a utility and therefore it is appurtenant to the land and runs with the land forever. But if the owner, if the owner of the easement, roughly referred to as the dominant estate holder, no longer needs it or surrenders it, then it would be extinguished. And it wouldn't even take a filing in the county clerk's office to extinguish it. It happens automatically as a matter of law.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay. If you have other questions, let me know.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
I'd just like to verify, Ed, you were the one that made the motion, and Amber, you did the second.
Yes.
Okay. Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Brian Malosey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Next resolution, approving town highway building plan number 2 and authorizing funding for the continued engagement of Bergman.
I'll move that.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Brian Malosey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
yes,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Town board members reports. I'm good.
You commented on the Lansing services in the library and the number tendency is. Even though I know they got a lot.
Okay, thank you. Ruth is not with us tonight, so Bronwyn?
I had both broadband and the Lactopus. The broadband discussed the agreement about the spectrum franchise agreement, which I expect we'll discuss in closed session, and the Lactopus reviewed sort of a list of committee priorities or possible priorities, but there wasn't a quorum, so we don't have anything to bring to the town board, but hopefully next meeting we'll have something to bring, they'll have something to bring to the town board so we can look at and give them some guidance on what to pursue and what to set aside. So
Excellent.
that's what I got.
Thank you. Joe?
I provided a written thing. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, that's not, move on. So, one of the hats I wear is the air service board. That involves the Ithaca Tompkins Airport. And these next couple of years are gonna get rough. It is the double whammy, cost of fuel is sky high, and lack of pilots. Rob and Dave did an early retirement, we took it. Now we have a pilot shortage, amongst others. And people are coming back. It used to be mostly business. There was a higher ratio of business to, how do you say, private. Now it's switched. I don't know how people are being treated on other airlines. I hope the ones out of Ithaca are doing quite well. I've heard other areas where they're not being treated so well. And I hope that changes. Maybe hopefully it was just an isolated instance where the passengers were really treated that well, but we'll see. We're still in rough times as we evolve, shall we say. So hopefully this airport will stay alive. They are doing miracles up there. I mean, they have excellent leadership. My call now stepped down as the chair, now we have another. One ace to another, it's exceptional. So this thing can be turned around and made stronger with that leadership and the other ones there, Roxanne Noble and also with Josh and Allie there. So there we are. Okay. So that was interesting. Also, our supervisors meeting, we had a presentation from Dryden, Jason Leifer, that they're going with broadband. It's almost forming a broadband district in a way, what we form a water district or sewer district. And how they go about that is absolutely fascinating. And our discussion was, for us, this is just my own personal opinion, is that I'm still waiting for the ARC grant and see where that one goes. And then from there, we'll see what the next phase is. And that's also relying on the broadband to see where that goes also. So hopefully there'll be some movement. I think the RFPs are out for the ARC. There's been some discussion of how it's going to be. We'll see.
Didn't you pick one of the plans?
It is under discussion.
Okay.
And that's all I can share with you right now. If there is, unfortunately, the last thing I could not make, I was told if it hasn't picked, I'm not aware.
Okay.
But once again, subject to change.
You know this change.
Well, what the constant we have now is change. And people don't, as we say, right, CJ? Two things people hate the most, the way it is and change. So there we go. Other than that, the day-to-day operations, we have another member in our office, right? Mary Ellen. So now Mary Ellen is learning her craft. She's doing exceptional. She's also teaching. For her assistant. On top of that, we're still going through, and your composure is amazing. You're so tailor-made for this job.
I sleep all at night.
Well, I try to get a read on you, and I can't read you yet. So if you're having a good day or a bad day, please, if you're having a bad day, tell me you are. Okay? But you do an exceptional transition. We still have Charmaine. She's been helpful. We use her as the contract, so that is a safety net. Helped us so much, and so be it. So that's where we are with that. The work session, we have the Board of Ethics, right? Shall we move into that? Okay.
You want me to talk about that?
Can you start? Sure. Now, I'm not saying, do you need to take a break at all? Or
I'm sorry. How are you doing?
I'll be quick. I mean, if you need to take a break and walk around. because-
I'll just.
Okay, Board of Ethics. A few things have come up recently. We did finally get a board together. It's my office that's in charge of sending out the ethics disclosure statements, which you're all familiar with. These statements need to be updated to match what the local laws that we actually passed. So someone needs to do that. And I don't believe that should be my office. It's updating this form. We did, under the certification, we did make a change there with Guy's help so that it did match what the law was. But I think either the board or somebody on the board or some couple people on the board or something need to look this over to make sure that this really goes, that matches the new law that we adopted, I don't know, a year ago or something like that. I think most of it's probably okay. It's this certification, and if that's not positive that that's really what you wanted to say, but we discovered it really didn't match when we were in the process of trying to get these sent out. So like I said, with help from Guy, Guy wrote what this is down there. So that's one thing on the Board of Ethics.
So can I just interrupt? Is that a possibility for the Board of Ethics to do?
I don't know whose responsibility it is, whether it's the Board of Ethics that needs to fix the form, or if it's the town board, because the town board needs to request what they want the Board of Ethics to look at. I don't know enough about that.
So Guy, I'm going to bring you in this conversation if I may, and is this something that the ethics board would be charged with, or is this something that two members of the town board would do? Or what was your advice on that?
Well, I mean, I think my advice would be rather equivocal, but I would make a recommendation if you want to consider it. I say equivocal because, it could go either way. The town board could direct that it somehow get done, that the form be updated to match. It's actually, if you don't dive into why this form exists and the strange split in the particular provisions of Article 18 of the General Municipal Law that have a full mandated form for some municipalities and no mandate at all for others, and recommendations as to how you use a form if you're not mandated to, but still think it's a good idea, i.e. such as Lansing has done, then it really dives you into perhaps a morass that your expertise could be better devoted to other issues. And I don't use the morass word negatively. It's just a very, very complicated area. And even if you know it, it would take an easy half hour just to figure out, pick a random town in the state that is, let's say, outside of Buffalo, and figure out whether this provision applies, and let me know how long it takes you. So to that extent, the other option is that the local law itself and the appointment of the ethics board delegated to them recommendations, that they give the town board recommendations as to updates on ethics laws, what's working, what's not working, what they observe in our form and documents that they would make a recommendation on. Since they also need to sort of dive in and start to learn this area of the law, and since it's really sort of a specific charge to them to make these kind of recommendations, and even though you have the final say, I would lean towards having the Board of Ethics do this, because I think it would be good experience in understanding what this is. And it would frankly put a fresh set of eyes on something that we all think we know rather well. And that can lead us to miss things that other people that are going to be charged with actually implementing this might think of relative to what they might ask an officer or employee who's on the eligible list and should fill out this form. So again, I think you could do it either way, but I'd lean towards option 2, but the decision's yours.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. They so, so we can do this with a motion?
We even need a motion, or can we just say,
I have more things on this too. This isn't my only
Right.
problem.
Okay, so why don't I do this then? Why don't I wait until
What?
you get through your report? I'm just trying to get this one at a time, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I have about 3 things with ethics.
all right,
So
we'll
I
just
don't
circle
know.
back. Okay,
So that's one thing, the
So
form
thanks,
needs to
Guy.
be updated.
okay.
Well, you might, don't go too far, guy. Okay, the local law that we recently adopted needs clarity on who needs to complete the disclosure form. In section 18.5 is where it talks about it. It's not clear, really. Jesse and I spend probably over 2 hours trying to figure out who to send the forms to. I don't really want to spend 2 hours trying to figure it out. It seems like it should be clear. For example, it says you send it to a deputy highway superintendent. Okay, that's pretty clear. The deputy town clerk is not listed. That does not make sense to us. I told Jessie she had to fill one out anyway. I mean, actually, she said, I'll fill one out because it doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, there's things like that it just really doesn't, it doesn't make sense of how this is. And some of the other things are, it's just hard to figure it out. And, you know, we're wondering, like, if a person on a board or somewhere takes an oath of office, but then they don't have to complete an ethics disclosure form. That seems a little odd to us. So we're wondering about that. And we did reach out to the Association of Towns. This was all coming together when we were at the meeting and they were there, and they said that if the local law is adopted subject to GML section 812, then everyone, officers and employees, must complete the form. Now, you know, then you sort of run into, well, do you want the ski instructor, do we have to complete one of these as an employee? So maybe it could say full-time, or maybe it could say if somebody has a pay or something over X number of dollars, something. But there needs to be some work done on that area in my opinion, because it's very difficult, very time consuming for us to figure it out. And are we really getting this form sent out to the people that the town board wants, or the ethics board wants it sent to? So there is that. And then the other third thing is one board member has resigned. So there's 4 members now. And what do you want to do about the vacancy? So those are my ethics concerns.
Well, I'd just like to start off, the guy and I talked about who should be filling it out, and we were looking to word it so that it would be basically supervisory people, because they're the ones with the discretion to actually have a conflict that is meaningful. I don't think every highway personnel person is in a position where they're going to have a conflict that rises to the same level. And so that's what we were aiming at, and clearly we missed to some degree because it's not clear to you. And I think sending it to the ethics board again and saying, can we clarify this list, would be helpful. You know, with your comments of, you know, here's where we're seeing the fudge factor so that they can help make that line clear.
I mean, the ethics board doesn't even have to fill one of this out. The people on the ethics board.
yeah, it seems like maybe there should, but
Seems like there's maybe a few things missing somewhere.
right, and I agree with kind of putting as much of this as makes sense to the ethics board to kind of keep that firewall between the ethics review and the town board, so that there's a bit of separation there, and that they're keeping their job, and so they can oversee us a bit also.
These changes still have to be approved by the board.
Right, but I'd like,
You still have oversight.
yeah, I mean, it's not
But the heavy lifting needs to be done by the people because they're the ones through their training are looking for certain things. So does that cover 1 and 2?
That covers when, if you want, yes, if you want the ethics board to look at this disclosure statement and this section here to make it clear.
And maybe you could give some insight to the suggestions, because as far as it goes, for them to implement what's missing.
Okay.
And we'll segue over to the third one. It might be that the ethics board actually should seek out their own members. I don't know, to as opposed to how else we do it, just advertise.
I think we should advertise. I think having a public.
I mean, they obviously will advertise.
Right, but I
When
think.
I say seek out, I mean that they would do the interview. and
Right,
everything
yeah,
else,
I think
and
that makes sense. Yeah.
that actually implied something entirely
I think that's like go knocking on doors. It's like, hey, you want to join the ethics board?
Yeah.
That's
We
what it
can-
usually takes.
Yeah.
Well, literally, well, so anyways, that they would do the advertising, the interviewing, and they would take the recommendation to the town. And then the town board can either say yes or no, depending on what the criteria is. Okay,
So you want the ethics board to advertise and interview for another person?
and make recommendations. I think if we follow the same pattern, if I'm not mistaken, with the planning board, for instance, the planning board does interviews and makes recommendations to the town board. We've done it with other board, non-elected board members,
Makes sense.
that we would have the oversight.
Okay, do you want me to communicate this to the?
I do, because no one knows more about what's going on
Yeah.
with those forms than you do. You have that vast experience. And to have them reach out to Guy if they need any guidance or any questions. I mean, obviously, there would be some money spent if they go out there, so we think the board would have to authorize that they would be able to spend taxpayers' money for that purpose.
I think it's important that they have legal advice on this. I don't want them just making stuff up.
No, I don't think they would. I think they would come to the board and say, look, we need some help on this. But I think we got some exceptional people.
Okay.
Have we all covered that?
Yes.
Do we need to vote on sending to ask the ethics board or just asking, you know?
I would like to wait for her stuff, right?
I'm done.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think you have to have a
Oh,
motion or anything. I
that's
think you just,
Okay.
I just.
Well, you're gonna approve the budget bond anyway, right? Across, as
Yeah,
long as we have a consensus of that. Guy, is that okay? Or do we need a motion that they can spend up to X amount of dollars for legal, for legal fees?
Well, I was speaking about referring all this to the ethics board. Do we need a motion to refer it?
That's, I was with you, Joe. I don't think you need any motion for that.
For which part?
For the part of just me asking the ethics board to handle this.
I don't know.
I didn't think, I mean, we don't do any motions as far as I know to tell any other boards how.
Well, but this is not part of their committee charge.
So the board's asking them this. Do we want to ask as a motion or just an informal? And I'm fine either way.
What do you think, Guy?
Well, this stuff is part of their charge because they're supposed to review and recommend updates to our law, our forms, et cetera. And I would tend to agree that you don't need to have a motion every time you want to communicate with one of your committees. As to allocating funds, generally speaking, the guidance from the state comptroller's office is that they should be allocated an annual budget that they can use or not use at their discretion, so that you avoid the apparent conflict of them having to come to you and say, oh, we need some money because we want to get advice on X, Y, or Z. What if it's one of you board members that is the subject of a complaint? and for whatever reason, there's a valid reason to say no to that request. Does it put you in a further conflict situation? The answer is yes. So I don't think you should allocate money for them for the limited purpose or specific purpose of consulting with me or any other council that they wish. I've actually told them that their first stop should be one of the attorneys at the Association of Towns, because they have someone that specializes, for lack of a better term, in this type of matter. But I think they should have a general budget for things that they might have to do, like hearings or subpoenas or photocopiers or and getting legal advice from me or some other source if they need it. If the complaint, for example, were about me, then certainly they shouldn't consult with me about it. I mean, I know I'm not a town officer or employee, but you know, that doesn't matter. That tires on that bus run over everyone. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
so I'd say if you're going to allocate funds because there's not currently any funds in the budget for them, then I might suggest that you start with some nominal sum that will get them through and let them tell you what they think they'll need, most likely after they get done with one of their first advisory opinions or something, so they have a better handle on, you know, what's going to happen. Right now they're getting hit with a bunch of new stuff and it looks like they have a lot of work, and I hope, you know, they don't get scared off and understand that, you know, your first day in the door is a little more hectic than your 40th day in the door, and the town really doesn't have a long history of ethical problems.
So what would be a reasonable amount as for them to get started before they can come up with a realistic budget as they've been implemented? $2,000?
Yeah, I was thinking something, you know, maximum of like $1,000. Because they wouldn't theoretically, whatever it is that they may need advice on, I can't foresee that it would take like that they use more than 2 hours. And that's, you know, that and that leaves money left over for them to make photocopies or do advertising or whatever it is they need to do. But it's completely up to you. Since a formal budget line item for the ethics board sounds like it might be a new matter, you're not going to really know what the right number is till you have like 2 or 3 years behind you and know what's coming. There's nothing wrong with over allocating and letting it fold back into the fund balance, because there usually, at least according to the guidance from the comptroller, there usually should be funds in there, even though they may never need them, because you want to avoid a situation where all of a sudden they have to do a hearing, issue subpoenas, hire a stenographer, and they've got to come back sheepishly and say, oh, we need more. And let's say, you know, someone made a complaint against a town board member or some other public officer, and you're like, well, geez, how many witnesses do you want to interview? The town board really can't be steering the process that way.
We had that situation with the court. We allocate so much for so many trials. And for the most part, it collapses back in the fund balance. We don't have, it's roughly estimated about $4,000 per trial. There's 12,000. Wow, thank goodness we don't have a lot of trials for that. So that's something that as they grow and evolve, that so we may do like we will have to do a motion for this, at least allocating money of at least up to 1,000. And then if they want to come back with a budget saying, what, we need more than that for now, give us a firm budget and reason why. But I think for now, especially if we're doing this work that we're asking them to do, I think it would be a good sign for us to at least give them all the tools necessary to do it.
And Debbie, you know more than us the timeline and urgency of possibly needing the money. Should we do that motion tonight, or is the next meeting? Should
I'm
we?
thinking the next meeting is
Okay.
okay. I mean,
Yeah.
the board is really just getting going.
Okay.
They have another meeting, I think it's scheduled for June 2nd, but it's really to go over these forms that I've received.
Perhaps they can have a brief discussion about
Yeah.
a recommended.
I'll mention
up
that to them
budget.
also.
Okay, good. Anything else to be covered under that?
But if I do the motion for the next meeting, you want it to say up to $1,000? Is that what you'd like me to put in?
Unless they
there?
come
Unless
up
they
with-
have a
Okay.
different.
You have to have a recommendation. And then we'll have to justify it.
justify it, show us a budget. And explain why
Kind of
it's
explain it,
like-
yeah.
We anticipate this, we anticipate this, we anticipate 12,000 for free trial, we anticipate whatever that is.
I hope it's not. something.
I would want. I would want a lot of information.
Yes.
Becker, I dare say, this is exceptional.
I think there's a record.
It's an opus.
I don't know. There's a hope. What's yours, Maple? All right, we set Mrs. Munson.
Sure hope so.
Do we need to move into either executive session or closed session?
Yes.
I think we need to do both, don't we?
So someone.
I
want
thought
to-
CJ had said something to me about possibly executive session, so maybe
I
she
will-
knows.
I think CJ and Guy both know what we need to do it about, so I'll defer to their
Thank you. Mr.
judgment.
Shirley. Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, me.
Yeah.
See you later. There you go. So anyways, someone needs to make a motion then for us to go into executive
Well,
session.
executive
I
session.
think I have two different things to deal with.
Well, yeah, they have to give the reason why. of course.
I see Brian was the green card.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I think we actually can probably do everything under executive session.
Okay.
Ooh, hang on, I'm working on it. This is executive session information, right? Yeah. I think actually matters made confidential under state or federal law, including privileged attorney-client communication. Does that cover what you know that we have to
Which
talk
sheet do
about,
you
Guy?
have?
Well,
I don't have.
well, if you're using that quote unquote cheat sheet, as I've warned, it's generally accurate, but it blends closed and executive sessions. The open meetings law has exceptions and exemptions. And something that's confidential, like an attorney-client privilege, because it's protected by state or federal law, that's an exemption. So you would go into closed session. An executive session would be something like talking about a town officer, employee, or person relative to their pay, performance, compliance with instructions, evaluation. That would be a classic executive session. So too would be discussing the purchase or sale of real property, where disclosing the price or terms might affect the consideration or nature of the deal. That would be an executive session. So if you're going in specifically to get legal advice, then it could be a closed session. If it was an executive session, a valid executive session matter, you could go into executive session and still obtain legal advice in executive session.
That's clear as mud.
I've said many times, laudable goal, good purpose, poorly written.
I think for my purposes, moving to go into closed session for legal discussion would cover it. And then if I'm wrong, we can come out and go back to the executive.
You want who to be involved? Obviously, Guy, you want CJ part of it?
Yeah, Guy and CJ, and I think that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you go into closed session, not executive session. Am I right on that?
Yes, it's right as I am.
I'll second that.
Okay, closed session. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?